And we are live on a Sunday afternoon to do my August Blu-ray comic book and book haul. This is the first time I have ever done a haul video as a live stream, and it is also the first time I've ever done a live stream using the current setup that I'm using. I've been wanting to upgrade my setup to have better quality live streams for quite a while, but my internet hasn't been very good. And finally, as of a couple weeks back, we seem to have gotten our internet problem resolved. And therefore, I'm hoping to find some ways to do more content using live streaming, assuming this works. So this is a bit of a test, but this particular test is to share with you the collection of things I picked up this month. It's actually very light on movies and more extensive on comics and books and things like that. I'm trying to get some of the important comics that will be coming out in the near future related to Marvel. And that's what I'm kind of experimenting with. So let's kind of get started with all of this. In the comment section, someone says that it is at 240. That would be most unfortunate, but would not be uncommon for my internet to go wacky on me. So people are saying it's blurry. Hopefully it will look better. People are saying all sorts of different things as to what it looks like. It's all just an experiment to see how it goes with a new setup. So we'll see how it goes. I'm doing the best I can. Internet, I did a live, actually now it's got it focused on the wrong thing. There, it seems to be focused on me again. Tried to fix it, thought maybe it was focused on the wrong thing, but I was wrong. Anyway, let's get started with this. First up, the only actual movie that I got this month was Jurassic World Dominion, the extended edition in 4K. Well, that's not 4K. Is it 4K? Why would I get the Blu-ray? I think I bought the wrong one. Must not have been paying attention as I made my purchase or something like that. Why would I do that? What have I done to myself? The things you discover when you do these live streams with me, when I realize what I've purchased. I meant to buy the 4K, didn't buy the 4K. So just have the Blu-ray. That's fine. My vision isn't good enough to know better anyway. But, people had plenty of issues with the latest Jurassic World. I would agree with most of their issues with it. I think there's also a good bit of fun to be had with it at the same time. Next up on here, Crystal Lake Memories, the complete history of Friday the 13th. And so this would be the extensive documentary throughout all of the Friday the 13th films. The next 31 on 31 we're doing in October. On October 31st will be actually 33 on 32. It will be the Halloween movies, Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street movies all ranked together. The other guys in the Autopsy stream actually previously already did a ranking of those franchises. That was, I believe, the very first 31 on 31 they ever did, but I wasn't participating in it. So for me, this is really exciting because it's like the big 31 on 31 with these major franchises all done together. And so whenever I do some of these big horror franchises, I like to do kind of a deep dive. So picked up, no, it doesn't, there we go. Well, no, it wants to lock in on my face. I'm still learning how this thing works. I literally got it yesterday. This is the first thing I've ever actually done with it, besides a couple of tests just to make sure it did something. So still figuring out how to set the autofocus and everything to be able to do everything I wanted to do. But Crystal Lake Memories, the complete history. Just I love to dive in, figure out the history of everything that went down, watching through all the special features on the Blu-rays and everything like that. And as well as that one, I got the gigantic coffee table book that goes right along with it, that behind the scenes, all the interviews, everything like that about the history of the Friday the 13th franchise. Along these very same lines, I got Never Sleep Again, the Elm Street Legacy, which is the Nightmare on Elm Street version of Crystal Lake Memories. It's an extensive behind-the-scenes documentary going into everything about how they made all of it, all of that fun stuff. So those are actually the only Blu-rays I got this month. I tried to get more, and there just wasn't anything that made any sense at that particular given time to pick up. It'll probably get a little bit busier moving forward because got a lot of things I got to watch over the next few months for several videos that are in the works. But what I did pick up was a whole bunch of comic books. First one up will be Batman 89. If you don't know what this is, it is a comic run that was designed to continue Batman 89, the movie Batman from 1989 from Tim Burton. It's a comic run that continues in that continuity. They did a similar thing with Superman 78. I actually read that on my vacation during August. And then this one actually only came out last week. So I just got it in the mail. Haven't even opened it up yet, but excited to check it out. What they're going to do with Batman 89. And I believe it has the Two-Face played by Lando Calrissian. So Lando Calrissian took the role of Harvey Dent in Batman 89 because he wanted to play Two-Face, and then they recast with Tommy Lee Jones by the time they got to doing that. So that's history on that one. Next one up, we have Secret Invasion. I'm trying to do a better job of picking up some of these big classic Marvel runs that they're adapting and reading them before the TV show, movie comes out, depending on which one we're talking about. So picked up Secret Invasion because we have a TV show coming out, what, 6 months from now, the beginning of next year. What is this? It's like a film on it that's already starting to bend off. That is unfortunate when you have something brand new. So first one up, that would be Secret Invasion. Next one up, Secret Wars. This is the Secret Wars from just a couple years ago. There's several different runs of Secret Wars that have happened. Trying to figure out mine there. I think it's several Secret Wars have happened. The first one was in the mid 80s, and that kind of kicked things off. Second one took place like 7-8 years ago. We don't really know exactly which one they will be adapting come soon, whenever they're doing this next Avengers movies. So I'm planning on buying both of them, reading both of them, and being educated on it before seeing everything. So as I do my theory videos, I can be more intelligent and more up to date on everything. Next one on here, graphic novel I picked up, Daredevil Born Again, the Artisan edition. This is massive edition of it with all sorts of fancy stuff for those in the art community, which I am not. But this is the run, in theory, that is being adapted for the Disney Plus series. So I wanted to give it a read, as you know, I've got a couple years until it actually comes out, but I've got it purchased to get it read long in advance. And the final little fun, silly one on here, A Nighttime Story for the Kids, The Karate Kid, the children's book to prep them for the new season of Cobra Kai, which I have already watched. So that's what I picked up this month. And so, yeah, there you have it. A lot of books actually this month, a lot of comics, not a ton of movies. That'll probably change in the near future. And if you're just tuning in a little bit late on here, I'm doing a little bit of a live stream test here. I've got a new camera because I've literally been using this webcam right here, this webcam for years. That was actually the main camera for my channel up until, well, until I was full time. I was using a webcam to shoot my videos. Then I went full time, had some extra money, got a camera, but I couldn't plug it into my computer to do live streaming with that camera. So it had some limitations and a few other things about it that I was looking to upgrade. And my internet is better now, so I've tried to make some changes. This is my first time ever doing this setup, other than one little quick test run just to make sure my internet wasn't abysmal. This is the first run I've ever done using this setup. So if you're here, you are legitimately part of the original test run of my future setup, current setup thing that I'm working on. So we had a few questions come out on here. I might as well snag a couple of these real quick. As I go into this. First one up, you asked this about 1,000 times in the chat. Have you seen RRR yet? No, I have not. Hopefully I will soon. I've been pretty swamped with all the things I've needed to watch, all the things I've needed to catch up on. So I've been meaning to watch it for a couple months. I actually wanted to see it when it first came out in theaters, and then I was traveling a lot. It just didn't happen. Things kind of slowed down as of last night. I actually caught up. I finished all of Cobra Kai, including the new season. And so I don't have anything I need to get watched for a specific deadline until October now. So I have more wiggle room on some of these things to kind of make some stuff happen. So I hope to watch RRR in the near future. Geek City, can you go back to your old setup? You'd have to give more explanation as to what you're wanting and what problem you're trying to solve by sending me back to my old setup. I have my reasons for why I switched over to this corner. There's things about it as to why I stuck in here. So I would need a more compelling argument as to what you're looking for, what problem you're trying to solve. Because just being in the old corner, there's a lot of things about what I'm currently doing that I like more. I'm open to suggestion, but just saying, hey, can you do the old thing? Do you mean going back into my daughter's room where I had green poster board on the wall? Of course you don't. But I don't know specifically what you are asking me to go back to, so I can't make a change to it without knowing what specifically you're wanting me to do. Also, the running problem I had in the setup that I had for 3 years there is just looks too much like Chris Stuckman's setup. I was hoping it would look different when I put it all together, look more distinguished from his than it ended up being. So that was unfortunate that it looked so much like his, but I didn't want it to. I was hoping the posters and some of the other stuff would make it pop more. It didn't. So whatever I kind of discovered this other corner, other way to do things, it looked different. It was didn't feel like I was copying anyone. So I went for it. Kind of moving on, Disney Nerd. I'm used to this kind of quality. I've seen the Patreon live streams. Yeah, so unfortunately, it shouldn't look like the Patreon live streams because it's a different setup. The internet should be better, but oh well. I'm trying to figure out how to get it to work. Someone says quality is much better now. So for whatever reason, it started off slow. Maybe it improved as it went along. Yeah, that's the internet for you. You never know what they're going to do. And maybe that's what the person was referring to. You're going to use my old setup, not realizing that this is a live stream, so it's going to look different because it's a live stream. It has nothing to do with the actual new equipment. Carter Lovejoy says it's also a sequel to Batman Returns, referring to Batman 89. Since I haven't started yet, I don't know where it is in the timeline. He says it's a sequel also to Batman Returns, so I assume that means it's actually more like Batman 93 rather than Batman 89. Some people trying to pull me into a political conversation. You are on the wrong channel. You are deeply misreading what I want to talk about on my social media. I've got a comic book called Hush. Haven't read all of it yet, but it's pretty good so far. Yes, I have Hush. It is one of the classics. Here's the question I always get. Have you seen Walking Dead? Every live stream I do on one of my public main channels, I get asked this question. I was an original adopter of Walking Dead. Before the show debuted, I had a season pass for it on iTunes, whatever it was at the time. I've never had cable, and so I had it on iTunes. So, and I watched season one. There's only 6 episodes, and I watched all of them like 10 times that year. And then second season just kind of burned me out pretty quickly. And it's just kind of like, okay, wait a minute. Seems like we're circling the wheels. Like, okay, we're repeating the same ideas. Things aren't moving forward. And then in the middle of the third season, I kind of gave up at one point in time. So I was like as early of an adopter of the show as you could have. Wasn't super into the comics before that. So I'm not that early of an adopter. I was aware of them, but I hadn't really read them. But for the show, I started from day one and then was, I guess, one of the first batch of people to actually give up on the show. There's all this stuff also with Frank Darabont. There's some very early bad buzz surrounding what went on behind the scenes. So I kind of just put a bad taste in my mouth. And then I just felt like we're just doing the same thing over and over again. The other big problem was my wife has never been into zombies. And so she wasn't interested in watching it with me. Other big problem came in is that couple years in is when we started having kids and I was just busier. I didn't have as much time to just watch something on my own. And so I abandoned it, fell way too far behind. Some other people chiming in. I also just picked up Secret Invasion and Secret Wars 1980 and 2015. Awesome. So I'm not the only one trying to get ahead and do our homework. Very cool. Have you read the Batman 66 comic? I have not, because I just wouldn't be as interested. That's not as, you had 3 seasons of the show. You had a movie. There was just a lot more of it. So the idea of like a couple more adventures there isn't quite as interesting as Batman 89, where we had kind of 4 stories, but really only 2 Tim Burton stories. And, that just kind of is more interesting to me. Also, I'm just more invested in Batman 89 than Batman 66. Hector, have you read Batman Year One? Batman Year One is my favorite Batman graphic novel. I love origin stories. on this shelf right here. You get it's if you can like squint really hard and zoom in and de-blur it, it's right there. But Batman Year One is one of my favorite graphic novels, probably my favorite Batman graphic novel, because I just love origin stories. And so it kind of tells that first year. I've seen the film version of it. I've read through it many, many times, watched the film many, many times, but absolutely, if you're looking for a place to get started with Batman graphic novels, Batman Year One is a very easy starting point because it is, you know, kind of him kicking off his career. Film lover, what would you like to see in Sonic the Movie 3? You know, I can't say that I'm deep enough into the lore to know where I would want them to go from where they've already gone. My years playing Sonic games was the Genesis era. So Tails was the big upgrade, and then Knuckles in the third game. They've done that. So all kind of the stuff they teased at the end, I'm not as familiar with that. Even like my son kind of plays one of the more recent games, the one that was free on PlayStation Plus or whatever, the one they gave away for free like a year and a half ago. We have that one. And so he knows those characters even better than I do. And so he was more excited when they announced some of those things than I was when I saw it. I don't know enough about some of it to be able to chime in. Philip Culture Film asks, Penn Badgley or John Krasinski for Mr. Fantastic? So I'm not nearly as familiar with Ben Badgley as I am with John Krasinski, not by a long shot. My wife watched that show, You, that he's the star of, but she didn't watch it with me. And so it was one of those ones I'd like fall asleep. She'd start watching it. I would wake up and I'd see like 10 minutes of the show. That's my exposure to this guy. Like me, groggy, barely awake, like, what's going on here? That's it. That's what I know about him. And John Krasinski, of course, I've seen The Office. I've seen a bunch of the movies he's in, and he appeared as Mr. Fantastic for 2 minutes in Multiverse of Madness. Now, some people have said, well, he wasn't very good in Multiverse of Madness. He was a little bit wooden. He felt kind of out of place. And you're not wrong, but you have to keep in mind, John Krasinski showed up in like a warehouse and was acting to a tennis ball. They put him in front of a green screen and he's acting to a tennis ball. He wasn't with any of the other actors. And even you can just look at the scenes. Clearly, he's not in a real space with those people. Everything was blue screen, green screen together in post. When that's the way you start things, that's the way you do things, you can't really expect all that great of a performance. And also, it's not like he spent months prepping for this thing. It was like, hey, want to do it? All right, go for it. You got 2 minutes of screen time. And also, Mr. Fantastic isn't supposed to be one of the most like charismatic, charming characters. He's not this big personality. He is kind of boring. So also saying that he's a little bit dull. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what Mr. Fantastic is. So some of that stuff, I think if you put in perspective, it plays a little bit better. Dylan, hey Dylan, says, hey Sean, thoughts on She Said trailer? I haven't watched it, so I can give no thoughts on it. Geek City asks, any tips on growing a channel? I have been on for a few months, and I have about 60 subs on this channel. So I have a whole separate channel on how to grow YouTube. It's called Real Creators. You should be able to find in links in description. If you search for Sean Chandler YouTube growth tips, it'll pop up. I've posted the panels I've been doing at Comic Cons that are all about growing YouTube channels. Right now, I'm posting a series, an interview series that I did with Heavy Spoilers, who is days away from hitting 1 million subs. And it's like each video is 20 minutes long. It was a 90-minute interview. After that, I have an interview with Cody Leach coming. I have an interview with Film Speak coming. And I've been posting videos on there going back since the very early days of my channel. So those videos are out there. You can also just search for Sean Chandler tips for starting, tips for growing. I've done videos specifically on each of them. So I've put a ton of content on it. And whatever question you have, I dive into all of it on there with my tips in multiple formats, depending on how you learn and want to hear some of that stuff. Sean Chandler, are you ready for D23? Are you going to be doing a live stream talking about D23? I'm ready for it because I'm excited just to hear, what's going to be announced, what trailers are going to drop. As a content creator, it makes it much easier to do what I do whenever they drop big days like that, where I know a ton of trailers are going to drop. It's it's easy content to like have stuff that people are excited about. I'm excited about. So it's just easy to just kind of tee off and have a good day on YouTube whenever something like D23, Comic Con, DC Fandom happens. Will I be doing a live stream? No, I don't normally do live streams for things like that. I've never done a live stream during one of those events. I'll frequently be on Twitter, kind of live tweeting along, making some comments and things like that. And then I'll do, you know, lists afterwards, videos afterwards, trailer reactions, talking about it. But I don't normally want to do a live stream about any of it. Joe Fletcher, will you ever bring the podcast back? Even this new setup, even this whole experiment with new camera, new everything, new internet, all of that even ties into hopefully bringing the podcast back in some form. It was just my internet was just so frustrating. My webcam had a number of issues with how it worked. It didn't look like the quality of the rest of my channel. I would do these live streams with Griffin from FilmSpeak, and his quality was so much better than mine. And there's just a lot of frustrating things with that. So ideally, this stream right now is an experiment to see if things will work better. We kicked it off and it was blurry and the quality was bad. That makes me go, uh-oh, do I want to bring the podcast back? Then it started to get better. And I go, okay, it got better. What do I need to do to figure out how to make sure that it's good when I start? What do I need to, like, with the kids streaming downstairs? What was kind of going on that my internet wasn't working great? But it's absolutely on my mind. I'm always looking for more ways to cover more things. The podcast made it easier for me to talk about a lot of things, bring friends on to have more lively conversations, different perspectives than if it's just me. And that's what I loved about it. And you know, the rankings I do take forever to edit, and having content that I can create, that I can produce a bunch of content out of it. Actually, even one of the reasons I started this second channel, Sean Chandler Plus, was based around the podcast. The whole thought was I'll do the podcast and I'll design segments to be able to clip out. Not everybody wants to watch a 90-minute podcast to figure out the interesting things in there, but I can know the topics that are very popular, and I clip that out. So the podcast becomes a way to create 3 or 4 more videos that other people would click on. And then if you want the whole long conversation, you still have the podcast there. Well, then I dropped the podcast right after launching this channel. So that never really happened. So there's a lot of things that it's always on my mind. But if this works and I kind of fine tune how to avoid the stuff where the quality's bad, it's significantly likelier to happen. Zachary, will you review Halloween 78 before Halloween ends? It's entirely possible. It's entirely possible. I don't think I would review all of them because I don't always enjoy doing those long review series. Actually, like a lot of the stuff, like the when I review through TV shows or like the lead up Journey 2 series, those are actually more stressful for me than most of the content I put out for some reason. I don't know why that is. I don't know exactly what's going on there, but those are more stressful for me. But Halloween 78 would probably be very possible that I would do something. Kind of funny. Mr. Spider, do you regret any pickups this month? Yeah, I regret buying the wrong Jurassic World because I got the Blu-ray instead of the 4K. I don't care too much, but it is kind of funny that I made such a rookie mistake. I read Watchmen comic last year. It's a fantastic read. Have you ever read that one? Yeah, of course. Of course. I've read Watchmen many times. Another one that should be, yeah, it's right there on that shelf right there that I'm pointing at. Yeah, I've read Watchmen a number of times. Long before the movie came out, I'd read Watchmen because it's the most acclaimed graphic novel of all time. So, yeah, I have read it. What are some of your favorite comic book stories? I like origin stories, and I like something that feels like a continuity that I can follow. So, like with Batman Year One, Long Halloween, and Dark Victory kind of play like this, the early years of Batman's career, a little bit of a origin for him. Sorry. Still trying to figure out how to work using a different camera to make sure that the focus is right. And I don't know how to set all the settings right. My old camera, it had like a box on my face, so I knew if it was focusing on me or if it was focusing on something else. And this one doesn't have that, so I don't know when it's focusing on me or not. But so those ones come to mind. Like I just said, Watchmen is the great comic books of all time. On the Marvel side, the Ultimates, they did this kind of alternate timeline of the Avengers, and that's one of the big inspirations for Avengers 2012 was the Ultimates. And in it is where Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury kind of came from. They just drew Nick Fury to look like Samuel L. Jackson. Before that, he kind of looked like David Hasselhoff, who actually played him in a 1990s movie. It was written by David Goyer, who wrote The Dark Knight. But they drew him to look like Samuel L. Jackson in this comic, and then when they went to make the movie, they just asked him, and Samuel L. Jackson seems to say yes to everything, so he said yes to it. Disney fan, how far are you on Avatar: The Last Airbender? I've seen like 8 episodes. I haven't watched a ton. It's one I've kind of tried to watch with my kids, and we started it and then we stopped, and so kind of need to start up again. But we'd have to start from the beginning. There's a lot of times where there's shows like that I'm kind of new to, that it gets tricky to watch through it if I'm not going to binge the whole thing. What is your favorite Chinese action movie? So when it comes to the gun fu, you got to go with the John Woo Heroic Bloodshed with Chow Yun-fat. So if you're looking for like the best gun action movies of all time, Better Tomorrow, The Killer, and Hard Boiled. If you've seen The Matrix, the gunfighting in The Matrix, that came from John Woo in the late 80s, early 90s, just the most crazy dynamic gunfights that you've ever seen. If we're going to go into the martial arts section of things, Jackie Chan's Police Story, love the fights in that one. Drunken Master 2, or here as it was called in the colonies when it was released, Legend of Drunken Master, incredible fights, weird story, but incredible fights. Those two immediately come to mind. And so you're starting to Chinese, those are the ones that I immediately go to. Jackie Chan's a bit of a frustrating one because the movies he had that had just like mind-blowing action don't necessarily have the most accessible plots, and then the ones with more accessible plots have a bit more mainstream action that's not quite as spectacular as some of the other ones that he did. Frederick, have you played the Assassin's Creed games? I played the first game when it first came out, and I wasn't a big fan of it. Maybe they've gotten better. Maybe my flavor or tastes have changed, but at the time I didn't. Which franchise do you prefer, Wizarding World or Middle-earth? I mean, I'm not really into either one. Neither one is like my thing. So I don't have a big vested interest in either one. They're both kind of in the same category of like, yeah, I mean, I kind of get why people absolutely love these and get obsessed over them. They're enjoyable. I've seen all of both of these franchises when it comes to the movies many times. I've read the Lord of the Rings books and The Hobbit, but I haven't read all of the Harry Potter books. Some of that's just a matter of when they came out. Probably, well, Harry Potter's much bigger in my household than Lord of the Rings because of everyone else in my household is obsessed with Lord of the Rings. Thoughts on 4K Blu-ray announcements we've been getting recently? Pulp Fiction, To Kill a Mockingbird, A Christmas Story, Elf, Polar Express, Christmas Vacation. My thought is, how are those not already on 4K? That's my thought. I mean, I don't get like excited. Wow, finally we're getting Pulp Fiction. I read that and I go, how is Pulp Fiction not already on 4K? That's normally my thought on those things. So I'm probably not a 4K collector like most people. I'm just a movie guy and I like physical media because I like to have something because my internet is spotty. Michael, do you think you'll rank the ghost faces when Scream 6 comes out next year? I plan to do more with the next Scream movie than I did with this year's Scream movie. I would have done more with this year's Scream movie, but I literally had COVID. I literally took a COVID test the day of the Scream press screening to make sure I didn't have COVID. I was like, oh, let me see if I've got COVID. I've got COVID. It looks like I'm not going to the movies the next 2 weeks. So I was late to reviewing, late to covering it. So I just didn't do nearly as much as I would have done otherwise. I absolutely plan to do a lot more. What will that be exactly? I don't know. I can't tell you exactly what those will be. Kind of depends on what I have an actual opinion about, what I think I have something interesting to say about. We'll kind of see how that goes. But definitely plan to cover more. Have you read the run with the Court of Owls? Was that Zero Year? Doesn't Zero Year have some Court of Owls? I read 0 Year. My buddy Andy gave me 0 Year right at the beginning of COVID, and so I read a bunch of those. I believe there was some Court of Owls in there. I could be mistaken though. I'm pretty sure. I'm almost positive I've read some Court of Owls. Brody, How's life, Sean? It's busy. Good, but busy. And I guess not as busy as it was during the spring where I was traveling and doing these Comic Cons so regularly. So it's nice that life has calmed down a little bit. But yeah, it's busy with 3 kids and the YouTube channel and still trying to get some speaking stuff going. And I have like 2 speaking engagements in October. Just keeps me busy. Gone Girl or Prisoners? So I've only seen Prisoners once when I was doing my Denny and Villeneuve ranking this last year. I've seen Gone Girl a few times. I think just because of that, I think I'll go Gone Girl because it's one that's made a little bit more of a mark. It just kind of, there's certain things in it that were just kind of twists that were like, whoa, in it. So I think I have to go Gone Girl, but both are really good. Have you ever read any Predator comics? There's one where essentially a sequel to Predators. Highly recommend. I've read the Batman in Predator comics. I've got those. Actually, once again, my buddy Andy gave them to me. So I've read those ones. I haven't read the real ones. I would be very interested in what you just described. If you know the name of it, tell me down below or I'll look into it. But I would be very interested in seeing a sequel to Predators. What's your favorite slasher genre? What's your favorite horror genre? Creature feature, slasher, unholy terror, slasher movies. That's kind of just the simplicity of it. I grew up watching the Friday the 13th movies, John Carpenter's Halloween. Those are kind of the early horror films that I watched. And then, love the Scream movies, though that brand of slasher films from the late 90s. That's when I was in high school. Those were my formative years. So those are the ones I default to. Do you like Only Murders in the Building? I haven't seen a single episode. My wife watched both seasons. She's told me her opinions on it, but I haven't seen any of it. So, sorry. Hoping to follow in your sips. Hoping to follow in your sips. I forgot how to speak. Hoping to follow in your footsteps sometime, Sean. Did it better. Even then, I started talking at the end and lost it. Did it better that time. Best of luck to you. It took me forever to make things work. I put up my first movie webpage in the late 90s and didn't start this YouTube channel till 2016, almost 20 years later, and didn't go full time until after 20 years after the first movie website I put up. You can take that as discouragement or you can take that as encouragement, depending on your perspective. I would take that as encouragement. It doesn't happen overnight. You're like my overnight success where I grew really fast on YouTube had 20 years of failures beforehand. Just keep that in mind. Adam, are you excited about the new upcoming Daredevil Born Again show? You must be late to the live stream because this is one of the things I picked up this month was Daredevil Born Again in anticipation for it. So I did a video talking about after they formally announced it at Comic-Con, I did a video about my excitement level for all the different things. Of course, Daredevil Born Again was pretty high up there. I have a lot of concerns, though, too. I'm not particularly thrilled with how Disney as a whole. I've not been thrilled with a lot of Disney's output since they launched Disney Plus. I think they've gone for quantity rather than quality. They're putting so much content out that the quality is just dropping. Mr. Spider, what's a movie you're tired of replaying in your house when it comes to watching movies for your job or just in general? I mean, I don't really have one that comes to mind. Like when it comes to my job, just watching things for rankings and things like that, I would only watch it once per year and I take extensive notes. So if I was like, man, I'm going to be really tired of this, I would just take really, really extensive notes. The stuff that I get tired of is actually like we're trying to watch all the best pictures in a month. Those ones can be exhausting for me because they're just so heavy and Carter, Joe Carreri for Johnny Storm, Human Torch. I'd be down for it. If they announced that, I could be cool with it. You just kind of have to know more about what they're trying to do. Fan casting, we're just kind of like our idea of Human Torch is our characterization rather than what they're trying to do. But, I think he could totally work. What's a movie you wanted to like but couldn't? There's kind of a ton of them. Just a lot of like artsy things. A lot, Spirited Away is not really my thing. Blade Runner's not really my thing. Things that are metaphoric, allegoric. I'm just not wired that way. A lot of Best Picture nominees, just above my pay grade, above my intelligence level. Just not really my thing. Yeah, you guys don't need to spam questions in here. So like, if you have a movie you can remake, what movie you think you would remake? I did a video, I think, on 10 movies that should be remade. I have a whole video on why I think that Back to the Future should be remade. So go check that one out. How did you and Cody Leach meet on YouTube? Whenever I was starting out, I had no audience. Like, 6 years ago, 6.5 years ago when I started, it was kind of a dormant channel that had 7 followers, and they were like people I already knew in real life. So I thought the best way to grow my YouTube channel was to like get really plugged into the community. And so I went out and I just went to other YouTube channels that had under 100 subscribers. And I said, hey, I'm new on here. I'm just trying to meet people. I'm going to check in and I'm going to be watching one of your videos every week. Love to get to meet you. Specifically with Cody Leach, it was the movie Bloodfather, a Mel Gibson film. You can go check out his video for Bloodfather. There's probably not a ton of comments on it. You can see mine. That's when we met, was literally that comment on his Bloodfather video, still on there. That's the first interaction we ever had. We started interacting more and more. And we started a Facebook group chat that a group of us were in for a while. And then we kind of different ways. And actually one of the guys in the group tragically kind of passed away 3 years ago. But that group chat for several years, we kind of ran it and talked with each other daily. That's how I got to know him. And then I met him in person for the first time just this February, because I just drove out to where he lives. I'm joining Patreon soon. Thank you so much. We do these live streams every week, and there's normally about 10, 15 people in there, so I can answer everybody's questions. It's very cool. Do you know about the Real Rejects on YouTube? I know of the channel. I follow Greg Alba on Twitter. He follows me on Twitter. I think we've had a couple of very brief interactions and DMs. I think Greg is more familiar with my content than I'm with his, which is, I don't know if that's humbling, embarrassing. I don't know what the right word for it is, but I was in a live stream draft for the Schmodown, and my name came up, and Greg Allen chimed in, and he's like, Sean Chandler, you should check out his content. He's way underrated. I was like, this guy that's like 5-6 times my size, he's telling people that's amazing. But they're kind of more of a reaction channel, and I don't really watch reaction channels, so I'm not as familiar with his work as I think he is with mine, which is really kind of cool. Please collaborate with Silver Screen Analysis again. Now that he's movies, I can't read today. Please collaborate with Silver Screen Analysis again. Now that he's movies never say die. Yeah, I mean we should. I hung out with him in May. We went and got lunch when I was out in LA, talked for a while, which always fun. He's a ton of fun. He's a real cool guy, real friendly. And pretty much everyone that I haven't met anyone in person that was a bad experience of other creators, of fans, or anything like that. They're all positive experiences, and pretty much everyone's cool. Which I'm glad to be able to say that everyone I've met has been really cool, friendly. And so, yeah, we should probably do more. Just last week, is there a new movie you're looking forward to this year? I put out a video a week ago with my most anticipated. How do you edit trailer reactions so quickly? Well, there's just not really much to edit. So the big thing is knowing when the trailers are going to drop. So you're waiting when the trailer drops. And there's enough people to kind of leak that, or they announce when it's coming out. So you just wait for the trailer to drop. And I have templates for all my reviews with my kind of lower thirds with like, be sure to comment, and my end cards. It's all preloaded. And so a trailer drops. I just have my camera already set up, everything good to go. And so then I just sit here, film it. There's nothing really much to edit. Because I do it in one take. And, I watch it once for the reaction, watch it a second time to try and pick it up to have something to say. And then I talk about it in a single take for a few minutes, whatever I have to say. And so editing that, it's just dropping the trailer on it, clipping out 4 or 5 clips from it, just drop them on there on the other part to have some B-roll and export. That's all it takes. So some of it's how quickly can your computer render a video? How quickly can you upload? My upload speeds have been horrible recently, which has been frustrating. But yeah. Please review the Halloween series, please. I'm thinking about it. I'm even like a big part of it is that I do all of this myself. So I have to watch the movies, I have to write all the notes, and then I edit everything, do all of my own graphics. So there's certain, like I want to cover as many things as I can. Not every video is going to perform as well. If I review Halloween 5, that's not going to do as well as a Halloween ranking. Halloween ranking will get 100,000 views. I don't know what a review of Halloween 5 will get, but I also like to create binge sessions. So if you rank the movies and that gets 100,000 views, and you say in that video, I've also reviewed each of these movies, then you drive traffic to people to other videos on the platform. So I like to do things like that. So I'm always trying to think of ways to do that don't require me to edit more, because that's the bottleneck. Editing is the thing that just, there's only so much editing I can do. That's even this new setup I'm experimenting with. Why I did this as a live stream, decided to turn into Q&A, probably should cut off soon, but didn't mean to do it as a 40-minute Q&A, but it's the editing. So if I were to do the live stream, or do these reviews as a live stream, that's normally how I shoot them. I shoot them, those sorts of videos, in a single take. Like my Breaking Bad videos I've been doing that are 50 minutes long, the raw footage is like, if the video is 50 minutes, the raw footage is 52 minutes. There's very few cuts. I do it essentially just extemporaneously. So we'll see how it goes. Favorite superhero, Batman and Superman. If you could interview any one of the people who inspired you to start YouTube, who would it be? It'd be probably John Campea. And I actually, when the first time I was in LA on YouTube stuff, I reached out to him and he said yes, but we never got it scheduled. And it's probably good, because I probably would have embarrassed myself. I doubt I had the equipment to pull it off right. But he told me yes. And he knows who I am. We've interacted a little bit. And it's kind of funny because we haven't had too much direct communication at all. Like very limited direct communication, emails and private DMs and things like that. But several times I've kind of showed up in his live streams and just left some comments. Every time I do that, he sees my name and he goes, "Hey, my buddy Sean's in the live stream." And so that's kind of fun. That's keep in mind, I was a viewer just like you for a long time. So that the fact that John Campea knows who I am and he's like, "Hey, Sean Chandler's in the chat," like, oh, that's cool. That's still exciting for me every single time. But I haven't interacted with him in person yet. Fairly limited behind the scenes, but if we could make that happen, that would be pretty cool. And I think he just has because there's so many facets to his story. He's written and directed movies, directed documentaries. He's a pastor at one point in time. He worked corporate world, YouTube. I think he did legal stuff. He had history of breakdancing. He's done some music, and now he's kind of out on his own. This is a guy that's done a lot of different things, and that's just interesting. Do you ever think we'll see Evans or Robert Downey Jr. in the MCU again? I wouldn't be surprised if we saw one of them. I wouldn't be surprised if we did at some point in time, but I think let's jump forward. It needs to be an event. It needs to be sometime in the future, not now. Like time needs to pass before you do something like that for it to really matter, for it to have the weight that it should have. Are you going to pick up Black Phone? I would assume yes. Which horror franchise is your favorite? Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, or Halloween? I believe I have a ranking of my favorite horror franchises. I believe I have a video of my favorite horror franchises. I don't think I could say offhand. As I said at the beginning of this, the next 31 on 31 is actually 33 on 31. It's those three franchises movies ranked together. So I'll have a better answer for you after that, after I do a clean rewatch of all of them together. Spider-Verse or No Way Home? Spider-Verse is the better movie. No Way Home is kind of the more rewatchable movie. It's it's just such a crowd pleaser, such a great theatrical experience. But as an overall film, Spider-Verse, I think, is significantly better. Okay. kind of zooming through a bunch of these. Okay, here's a fun one. Where did you get into Hong Kong cinema, or how did you get into Hong Kong cinema? So I always liked martial arts movies. I just kind of just like that sort of thing. And so in the early 90s, Van Damme, Seagal, Mark Dacascos, Only the Strong. So I was kind of into that sort of thing. But the American martial arts films had a certain pacing energy to them. And in the mid 90s, Jackie Chan came over and they started dubbing his films. So Rumble in the Bronx, Super Cop, which actually has Michelle Yeoh in it, Operation Condor, First Strike. They started bringing his movies over, adapting them, and then those did well enough that they then did Rush Hour, which teamed him up with Chris Tucker and was a massive hit, huge moneymaker. And then they did Shanghai Noon, which was another big moneymaker, teamed him up with Owen Wilson. So I'm just this kid that loves martial arts movies, and then these commercials say the biggest international superstars finally coming to America, which is only partially true because he actually came to America in 1980 as well in 1985. He tried to transition or earlier, didn't work, but then it did work in the late 90s. So I see this, go to check this dude out. And pretty quickly, it was like, all right, this is awesome. This guy's awesome. And started going down the rabbit hole, and then started looking into the Jet Li and John Woo action films. John Woo was transitioning over throughout the 90s as well. Like, wait, the guy that did Hard Target, he did movies in Hong Kong, and they're okay. Started looking into, and that's kind of the rabbit trail, kind of where that came from. And when you discover something that's brand new and this new flavor, it's just really exciting. Like, you're the only one that knows about it. And you're telling everyone about, like, have you seen this? And you just want to share it with them because no one else knows about it. And it doesn't work that way as much now because the internet has made everything so accessible to everyone. Like in the late 90s, it was tough to find movies. You didn't have Amazon where you could just order any movie. You had to find it at an actual store. And then a lot of these Hong Kong films weren't in the United States. And so, like, even on my Jackie Chan fan page that I had in the 90s, there was a section on it where you could email me to trade movies. And I would have a movie and I would mail you my copy of the movie and you mail me your copy of your film. And what could you find at the store? And like, I had Twin Dragons and watched it a bunch of times, but then someone else had Thunderbolt. And so we switched movies. And it's like, you wouldn't do that now. You just make a digital file or something like that. Just very different time, very different way to do things. What did you think of the twist in Samaritan? I personally hated it. It ruined the movie for me. I mean, I discussed it in my review. If you watch my review, that's what I'm talking about in the negative. The whole thing is like the way they did that. It shouldn't have been a big twist at the end. It should have been a character study. We should have known that much sooner. So you do a character study. You dive into what makes him tick. Why did he do what he do? What caused the two brothers to separate? That's what I'm talking about. So you just rewatch my review and think, oh, this whole thing he's saying in the negative, that's what I'm talking about. Rather than Cassian Andor, who would you have lead a Star Wars show about the rise of the rebellion? I don't know. I mean, I don't have anyone in mind. Cassian Andor is like, it's really about, if it's about the rise of the rebellion, that's really the hook. It's about the politics and the behind the scenes, the espionage. That's really the hook, rather than like, oh, Andor, that super interesting character from Rogue One that no one was asking about a show about. Favorite DC animated film? I've done a video on that. I've done multiple videos on that. Okay. Is D23 still happening? Yeah, of course it is. I mean, they sold tickets, so if they canceled it, they're going to make a bunch of people really, really, really mad. Can you rank all the Rush Hour movies? You know, I've thought about it a bunch of times. It's just anytime, if you rank a franchise that hasn't put out a new movie in 15 years, that isn't one that really like latched hold of popular culture, then it just doesn't do as well. Unfortunately, it doesn't connect with, it doesn't get the views, and it doesn't do any of the stuff it's supposed to do. So that's the holdup. Are you doing a MCU movies and TV show ranking video when the final episode of She-Hulk Attorney at Law drops? Well, I mean, I would do it after Wakanda Forever. Whatever the last thing of the year, and I'm pretty sure it's Black Panther Wakanda Forever. After that is when I would do it. That's kind of what I'm trying to do, instead of every 2 months doing a video with this gigantic, enormous thing. Once per year, doing one big mammoth MCU ranking. And maybe that's also when I'll do the characters and villains ranked together. I haven't really mapped it all out, but they're just putting out so much content that I don't want to put out that same ranking every single time. And I don't want to burn people out with just doing the same things. I don't have new insights every time. I have the same notes, same jokes. So I try and write new ones, but there's only so many things to say when I've already said all of it many times before. So it'll be in November after Wakanda Forever. Thoughts on The Chosen? I haven't actually seen any of it. It didn't immediately interest me all that much. It kind of seemed like Jesus fan fiction, which struck me as kind of a weird thing to do. A bunch of people I know love it. I just haven't watched it. One of my good YouTube friends, Christopher Durbin, is like the host of the official Chosen YouTube channel. He actually moved out to Texas because he got that job. He's on the set of the show and everything. And I haven't gotten to meet him yet, or I have met him in person before. I haven't gotten to see him in person since he moved to Texas because he's been so busy with the filming of the show. All right. I guess I'll take a couple more and then I'll close this one out. How much have you enjoyed House of Dragons? I posted a review of it. It's episode 2. I dug it too, but I posted my review and I would stick with everything I said there. Yeah. Here's a fun one. Tony Movie Chappie. Hey, nice to see you in here. I met him at MegaCon in Florida. Question, Sean, what did your friend think of Batgirl before it was canceled, since he was one of the few people who was in the test screening? So if you don't know what he's talking about, someone I know saw Batgirl at one of the test screenings. I referred to him as my inside man in my most anticipated video. And so he's just been to a lot of test screenings. He's seen a bunch of stuff. Aquaman 2, not Shazam, Black Adam, Babylon, a bunch of stuff. He goes to as many early test screenings as he can. He hasn't seen The Flash yet, but he did see Batgirl. So he's one of the few people that has seen it. Short answer, simplified answer. He said it wasn't very good. It doesn't feel like a big cinematic event film. It's not abysmal. It's not terrible. It's just not all that remarkable. You described it as kind of feeling like Miss Marvel, but a little bit darker. That's the big points of what he said. So do of that what you will. You have to keep in mind, test screenings are intentionally, they're not complete films. They're designed to get feedback. They're designed to figure out what does and doesn't work, what needs to be adjusted. But that's the incomplete version of it. That's what someone that has seen it had to say about the movie. Okay, and a bunch of people kind of throwing this one in here. What do you think will happen to the Flash movie? I don't know. I have no idea. And this will be the last question, but I don't know what's going to happen with it, because it's such a bizarre situation where you have someone that, for whatever reason, they're a terrible person, they're mentally ill, they're just having an emotional breakdown, is clearly out of control. And whether everything that's being said is true or just some of it's true, or whatever amount of it is, there's way too much smoke for there not to be a lot of truth to it. There have been actual arrests, actual warrants, and he was on the run. They had warrants for him, and they couldn't find him. Warrants in multiple states, arrests in multiple states. There's no good way to spin that. There's no way to be like, oh, people are picking on him. People are running a hate campaign on him. the police don't, or it was Ezra, guess because it doesn't go by him. The police, they're not just running off rumors. They're not, like, there's real stuff kind of going on here that you have to pay attention to. And there's a lot of people on Twitter trying to defend him and Ezra, and that's like, there's no possible good spin on this. And I think the part that was most alarming to me is that this was going on for 6 months and Ezra didn't say anything. Months, multiple arrests. And the report came out. The reason that Ezra made an apology was because they were potentially going to cancel the film. The report says Ezra wasn't particularly worried about the bad headlines, but when rumors started to speculate they might cancel the film, that is all kinds of red flags. That is so many red flags right there, that you have someone that only cares about their movie getting canceled. Whatever the reason is, if it's mental illness, if it's just a terrible person that's a narcissist, whatever it is, that's a person that's out of control. And I don't know what you do with a movie starring that person that costs $200 million. And the part that I think it makes it extra tricky, all the rumors from test screenings are that it's awesome. My inside man has not seen it, but all of his friends that he goes to these test screenings with, a bunch of them have. Everyone he's talked to says it's awesome. And Ezra is great in the film. So they have an awesome movie with a nightmare of a lead. What do you do with that? I don't know. I don't know what you do with it. They are in a no-win situation. So there you have it. Hey, thank you guys so much for tuning in. I thought this was just going to be well, I knew this was probably going to turn into a Q&A. That's kind of the fun of going live, is that they always kind of turn into Q&As where I can talk about things I don't normally talk about. Hopefully I'll be doing more live streams now that my internet's working better camera, easier setup. That's the plan. Maybe podcast comes back. That's what this is all about. This is the first test run. If you've seen any of this, you are a part of the first of hopefully many of these things. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.